Well, I think we've got a strong discourse around adaptation, and that's quite a new kid on the block. Because if you think about it, even 15 years ago, the assumption was we could mitigate our way out of the climate change challenge. We now know that we can't. And so adaptation has begun to emerge in the narrative. The problem is, because we didn't mitigate ambitiously early enough, the scale of the adaptation that we're now facing is far larger, far more comprehensive, and it speaks to the need to change some of the fundamental elements of society. So now we're talking about not only responding to change, but changing the socio-ecological elements of society so that we can deal with the enormous amount of adaptation that's required. So adaptation really is about adjusting to change. Transformative adaptation, though, brings in a different consideration. Because if we think about adaptation in its traditional sense, it's generally reactive, it's short-term, it's about maintaining the status quo of a system. So you want to keep the system doing the same kind of things it was doing before the change happened. Whereas transformative adaptation delves a bit deeper. It talks about long-term future change. It questions the system as a whole and talks about systemic change. So much more proactive than reactive.
It's still assessing the damage caused by the tornado, but estimates damages will run into millions of rands.
In this community destroyed, many of those who lost their belongings are still in a very difficult predicament. They are still sleeping in those small tents, and some obviously.
You know, transformation is such an important aspect of how we should be thinking about our cities. You know, our cities face a huge range of challenges, environmentally, from a socio-economic perspective, high levels of inequality and poverty. And so it's critical that we think about how we act to transform things in our cities. And so when we're talking about transformative adaptation in cities, we're talking about big systems changes, you know, fundamentally challenging the governance systems, the economic systems that perpetuate many of these cycles that we see of inequity, of environmental degradation and so on. And so really thinking about what that means for cities, for me, is very important.
The streams and rivers of the city permeate into the everyday life of its diverse inhabitants. But at the heart of the climate change challenge sits a deteriorating relationship between residents and the river. In the city, the river that gives has also become the greatest source of risk.
The streams and rivers of the municipality or the catchment are like the veins and the arteries of the city. So I think when one starts trying to work with climate adaptation and to create an idea about climate adaptation that's transformative, so that means you're not just dealing with immediate risk or trying to reduce the flood risk, but you're actually using your climate adaptation approaches to transform the city. So to move people out of poverty, to find progressive ways of dealing with informality, to find innovation around water and sanitation, which the city's trying to do, and particularly sanitation, which is such a high risk. The minute you start looking at those issues, you trace it back to water again, because water is one of the really important pathways that all of these problems come together and create the disasters that we see in the city. So rivers give you this amazing opportunity to deal with the challenges of the city, because it's in this way that people are connected.
The eThekwini municipality boasts approximately 7,400 kilometers of rivers and streams, many of which are severely degraded and pose flood risks. To address this, various river management programs have been established. These programs are implemented by different stakeholders and follow different models. A team of researchers is trying to understand what transformative climate adaptation looks like in southern African cities. To achieve this, they are looking at 4 of these river management programs.
Our project is called Transforming Southern African Cities in a Changing Climate. And what it's about is trying to understand what this notion of transformative adaptation means in local development contexts of Southern African cities. So one of the reasons that Durban has been considered a leader in terms of climate change adaptation is because they have placed ecological infrastructure values at their core in terms of responding to climate change. So the idea of building ecological infrastructure to reduce risks associated with climate change. So we're focusing on 4 different programs that have quite different models in terms of their implementation. We feel like there's a lot of learning potential across the different projects because of their different models and because of their different successes and also the challenges and lessons that they each learn.
One of the management programs that embody some of these characteristics is the Sizimvelo program. The Sizimvelo program has been running for 7 years and is implemented and funded by the Roads and Stormwater Department of the eThekwini municipality. Originally designed as an engineering solution, the aim of this program is to clear alien plants and waste from streams that block the city's culverts and thereby causing damage to the hard infrastructure during floods. To do the work, the city employs cooperatives in 2 major areas in Durban.
My name is Begani Ngubo, popular known as Mr. Blanket. I'm one of the directors of the Gcina Arts and Culture Cooperative that is cleaning this stream. One of the reasons why we are doing stream cleaning is to avoid alien plants. That's one. Is to make sure that the stream is clean. Is to make sure that we avoid unnecessary stuff that is being brought onto the stream. You find your tires in there. Sometimes you find a car, just like one time we found somebody threw a car. I don't know how it rolled into the stream. So these things are the things that you come across when you're cleaning. It's good in one way. The environment is kept clean by stream cleaning. That's one. It's kept people working because out of the cooperative we have 5 members that are directors, and then we have employed 8 people. So that means we're able to feed 8 families plus 5. So that gives a difference in terms of how this project is working now.
We're doing 300 kilometers at the moment with 59 co-ops, and the goal ultimately is to end up at 7,400 kilometers, which is this length of stream and river within our city.
Within Transformative, it was a program that was designed in order to maintain the streams and keep them clean so that it can prevent the erosion, the flooding that is actually happening within the roads infrastructures.
We started this project back in 2012. If you can take a look at this site around here, we had a lot of trees, a lot of alien invasive, a lot of dirt, and now it's all like this.
Through the engagement of people that live within that catchment in the formation of the co-op that's doing the work, we're starting to see a change in the fact that the community is seeing the river as not a municipal problem, but in actual fact it's a communal problem or a communal space that needs to be managed for the benefit of not only the municipality and the municipal infrastructure, but also the community and the community infrastructure and well-being. So we're seeing it transform different attitude by the community towards that area.
We used to have people who weren't educated about the benefits of having a clean stream, the benefits of having a water flowing down, as you can see now. For instance, we used to have a house up there by that White House. There used to be floods each and every time. So whenever there's rain, they used to get floods in that house. From the day we started cleaning the stream, we didn't have any of those things.
One of the other transformative river management programs is the LIRA pilot project. The LIRA pilot project was started by the eThekwini Conservancies Forum after a river walk down showed stakeholders how polluted the river was. The project aims to restore a functioning ecosystem, to influence mindsets and behavior around rivers, and to find a conducive, effective governance framework and system.
The main objective of the LIRA pilot project is really to work with the way people behave and relate to the river that runs through their communities, mainly in a way that's constructive and restorative.
I think it's just the mindset. You get people living in such conditions, they have this mentality that I don't have a home here, why should I take care of this area? You have people who are paid to do it, why don't they do it? Because she also had the same problem when we came to speak to her. She said people say, I can throw anything on the floor in the approaching blocks because you are paid for that.
Before we even decide what we're going to do, we try to understand the project, the context that we're working in. So we precede any of our activities with what we call community research. So we go in there, we meet people, we see the context of the river, we see the social context, we see the geophysical context, and we use that to define the work that we do, the activities that we choose to focus on.
The eco-champs monitor the river every Tuesdays. Also, they do a rehabilitation by removing the alien plants, which also it is in the river because that's where it absorbs more water. And also the eco-champs, they go more to the schools because we've got 6 schools in Claremont where we've got eco clubs, where we want the children to be involved in our project because we know that they are the ones who are going to be the leaders for tomorrow.
Probably the most transformative thing about the LIRA pilot project is the methodology that we use, which is quite a gentle methodology that has at its heart behavior change, and so by definition it's transformative, and we work quite slowly. We're comfortable to work slowly. We're not expecting massive results overnight, and we don't even mind if things regress over a period of time, as long as the way people see their rivers and their waterways transforms in a way that supports the functionality of that ecosystem.
If you're trying to change behavior, you need to, when you say don't dump anything close to the river, you know what they will do? They will just paddle it up and then burn it. Now what you have to do, you have to tell them, no, it's not good to burn your waste. It's something else too that needs time. Get people to get the hang of it so that you don't throw it in the river, because they know that the river is something that washes away everything.
If you think about the ways in which these streams and rivers connect people and the living environment of the city, it happens where people live immediately adjacent to a river and they might face challenges living alongside that river. So they work together and build social cohesion to address the challenges in the particular space of the river. But the river also connects people from the upper catchment to the lower catchment. And in many cases in Durban, the upper catchment might be very poor people, transferring risk down to people living in middle income households, or the other way around, as we see in the Palmy catchment, where industry is transferring its risk and pollution down to low income people living in an informal settlement.
The Palmeet Catchment Rehabilitation Project is managed by the Community of Innovators, which consist of a variety of stakeholders from the catchment. They then co-develop solutions around ecological infrastructure.
The objectives of this project, it's around improving the natural habitat, which we are calling it ecological infrastructure, to assist and see what role they can play in terms of climate resilience to communities within the catchment. The project, it's made up of different actors or different stakeholders, which got different interests, you know. When we came, we all have our set objectives that this is what we want to achieve. But through engaging, through discussion, we realized that, you know, we have to change our objectives to fit within the whole Palm Beach Catchment Rehabilitation Project. Otherwise, it should be our project, not, you know, in a sense, excluding other stakeholders, which shouldn't be the case, you know.
The Palm Beach, I believe, it represents the diversity of the city itself, you know. You've got people within informal settlement, you've got your people that stays within your suburban areas, you've got your local conservancies, you've got industry, you've got academic institutes to do research. So it's a different ingredient combined into one project, and then that's the future of our cities, you know.
But it's a really bottom-up process where the issues that are dealt with are decided by the groups of people, not because there's an agenda to do something in particular, and it's often issues-driven. So we're trying out that model, but we also realize that we need the state support in a big way to intervene around the big critical issues that actually, as ordinary citizens working together, it's very difficult to do.
What we're saying is it's not business as usual. You can't just change small elements of society, you have to change the whole socio-ecological system of society. It has to be an all-of-society response. So the IPCC is now framing transformative adaptation in that sense, around these systemic changes that are linked to these big transitions that we're identifying as necessary if society is going to meet these more ambitious goals.
And we believe, I think it's part of the DNA of our approach, is that it needs to be a partnership approach. It needs to be a partnership between the private sector, who are not currently involved, government, who needs to pay for some aspects of it, and the community, who needs to participate in many ways.
I also think what has helped is that when the university came into Quarry Road as well, it has helped a lot in making sure that the municipality and the community start the conversation. Otherwise, it was us and them.
True.
But as soon as the university came in, then that has helped the process to at least go through. And then we started understanding each other from the municipality's views and also from the community views that we were able to speak together.
Projects are dealing with complex issues that can't be solved by producing academic knowledge alone. So we need to have stakeholders involved in the process of producing knowledge. I think that stakeholders know, people who live in these cities know best about the issues and also know best in terms of contributing the knowledge for solutions. And that's why this transdisciplinary approach is so important.
It's about looking at joined up science, joined up societal action, deploying that information in a way that creates new systems. It's about drilling down to some of the fundamental causes of the problems we're experiencing today. Not only the use of fossil fuels, but the kind of socioeconomic system that underlies it, the inequity and the injustice that lies behind social constructs. So for me, that would be the important elements of transformation. It begins or encourages us to drill down into the foundation of the problem, not only react at the surface.
Rivers provide a major service in the city. They are removing most of our waste, they're removing our sanitation, we're not providing properly as the municipality. They are providing a fundamental service that without that, all of these risks would be much higher in our city. But the rivers can't keep doing that. They can't keep being that buffer for the failure of other systems in the city.
Tell the people that when you get your tap water, it starts from the river, then it goes to the dam and come back to your tap. So the river must be cleared out of the garbage and the nappies and everything.
It's all about the love. You start loving your community as you love yourself. Whatever you do inside the streams, it will affect many things, not just our oceans, because this water goes straight to our oceans, but just us. Imagine having a house with the kitchen facing the streams and having that smell coming into your own kitchen whilst you are cooking. So it's beneficial to everyone. Should they keep their streams clean, everything will be perfect.
Well, so now we started getting report backs from the communities that are working there. Things like, I feel safer in the area now. I know who my neighbor is because I can see them. It's not this big Spanish stand of Spanish reed. Obviously earning income. You heard some of the stories yesterday. It's changing people's lives. And we realized that it wasn't, and we were seeing less blockages and less damages. So we were seeing the result we wanted to realize, but we realized there were a lot of other benefits. Because if we can get rehabilitated streams through this program, the risk of higher intensity storms, more frequent floods, if we've got managed streams, the damage risk is reduced, even though we have an increase in these events. To achieve that, we've got to take the learnings from here, we've got to take the learnings from here, and we're starting to pull all of those things together, do the cost benefit, so that we can start going to the city treasurer and say, spend R1, you save 10 Rand. If we could take the waste that's coming out of the river and the alien vegetation coming out of the river, it becomes a resource for another process. We start mapping all of these and bringing them together. We're now taking the budget and we're spending it where it needs to be spent, on the eco-champs, on the people on the ground, on those resources. The unemployment is a problem, but it's a big resource that we can use. And how do we justify that? And that's really what we're trying to do. We don't want a 2-year project. You saw the problem here. We want it to be sustainable. But we take 300 kilometers and move it up to 3,000 kilometers. It can make a massive difference.
So I think a focus on water and rivers, particularly because it connects people so much in our city, and it connects the way in which people live in the city, the risk for people in the city, opportunities for people in the city. If we rehabilitate our rivers and we build climate adaptation about our rivers, we create jobs for people, we create a connection back with nature. People love to engage with open spaces in our city, and rivers are one way that they can do that, and we've seen that across our research. Even if you're a poor person living in an informal settlement, that is very important to you. So I think certainly for me, in the environment I live in KwaZulu-Natal, in the Mgeni catchment in this municipality, rivers are a fundamental opportunity for transforming our city in its economic, social, political and environmental life.
What we now know is the combination of ambitious mitigation and adaptation means that we're going to have winners and losers. And this is where concerns around equity and justice come, is that we've got to redefine the way we support the losers, and there will be losers. We can no longer avoid it through our adaptation and mitigation work, through, for example, redirection of financial flows. We substantially have to change the way that money flows. We have to fundamentally prioritize multi-level governance so that all of society is involved. And the importance of innovation in transformative adaptation should not be underscored, because adaptation is often context specific, and so we often don't have one size fits all. So multi-level governance, innovation, and importantly, we need to change the places that money goes to.